Welcome to our new episode. Today we have an amazing person. Thank you so much for your service. He's a veteran. He got into real estate. He does a lot of wholesaling. He's trying to give back to the community. He wants a lot of projects going on. He started from very humble beginnings. I know most of his story, but I want him introduce him. We have Anthony. Anthony, thank you so much for having us today.
100%.
How are you, sir?
I appreciate y'all, man. I appreciate y'all. I just want to say thank you for inviting me on this podcast, man. Just to, very humble. I met Jonathan. Oh, shoot, man. When we both started, when we both started. Yeah, basically. Yeah. And appreciate Austin, allowing me on your platform to speak to the listeners. So, yeah, a little bit about me. I started about 5 years now. 5 years, and I was working. And it's something that I knew deep down in my soul, I had to be doing more. I used to do a lot because I was still in the military. I was in the National Guard, did, basic training and all that stuff. And I knew that it was more to life than just law enforcement. Because being as though I was in the Guard, there was a lot of people in the unit that was police officers, yada, yada, yada. And, I just went that route. So I did a lot of different things to be young. From corrections, I was sheriff at one point, worked at the postal service, I was police dispatch. I tried all those various different things, but it wasn't my calling. And it really hit me because I left the academy. I was in the academy when I moved back from Virginia, moved up here for some family stuff. And I was in the academy, and I left the academy to do diplomat protection services for the diplomats overseas in Kosovo in Europe. I was supposed to go there. Government shutdown happened, so it didn't happen. So I was supposed to pay me all this money and all that good stuff. So I was like, man, what I'm gonna do now? In the midst of that, I bought my first property, and I was already fixing it up. So that was the one sign that I knew God was like, you know what, stick to what you was gonna do, and everything will fall in place. And I had a long talk with my fiance. And she was telling me the same thing. She was like, you talk about real estate daily. Take that as a sign of go hard for yourself, and everything else all around you align yourself, align with myself. So that's pretty much how I started, man, and then I growing from there, try to do different things, seeing what worked and what didn't work. And now I'm just sticking to the path.
Awesome. You mentioned a lot of different jobs. Do you think all those jobs helped you to get you where you are? Because I know in wholesaling and real estate, you need discipline. You need a lot of different criteria that you can learn from other jobs or other experiences. Do you think that helped you in a certain way? And what parts of it helped you?
Yes, I agree. I definitely agree with that. I would say, especially having leadership skills, being able to lead from the front, and same thing in the military, you lead from the front so that you can have a path so everybody else can follow your footsteps. And, I think that takes a part in real estate as well, especially wholesaling, because when you're building out a team, you need to lead so they can see what you're doing and see what systems you have in place so they can follow that system, and then everything can align and work with each other. Of course, there's some pushback because some things work, some things don't work, but that's where teamwork comes into play. And then everybody, put their minds together and see what can work for them, no matter if it's a virtual assistant or a person that's in the U.S. You want to have daily talk with your team and make sure everything's working out for everybody. So yeah, that's pretty much that, man. That definitely helped me. The law enforcement stuff, especially when you're in some type of training, you train to listen, you train to respond in a certain way. I know sometimes that may not always be the case, but that's what you're trained to do. So when you follow that training and that system, it works.
I love it because ironically, the most people that I've seen be successful in real estate that come from different careers have been people that have been in service, and it makes so much sense why, and not only like real estate, but just success in general. It just makes so much sense because mindset, at least from people that have served, Marine, Coast Guard, Army, Navy, and even corrections, police officers, SWAT, whatever the case. But the one thing that's not taught in school, obviously, is like mindset, right? Like there is no course, there is no degree, there is no major in mindset. And these fields tap into the mindset more so, I feel like, than the physical part. Because I feel like the physical part is one thing, but it's more so when you're in the uncomfortable environments where like your brain wants to default back to, you know, whatever the case, that's where like the real training comes in. And then going into real estate, like it makes sense because like for wholesale, like, which is why I really want to get into these strategies, is it's very easy to have the discipline to make 10 calls a day.
Yeah.
But it's also the same exact thing of why majority of the people are not successful. Because it's something that's so simple, but it's the discipline of doing it. Because even like if I check myself, like I don't, as much as I'm like, I'm gonna do 10, like it just doesn't happen. So I have to find other ways to stay consistent. But the consistency piece is the only thing that is consistent, no pun intended. With any strategy. But like I think I'm so admired by how many people that I've seen that's been successful in like this particular business, strictly not even off of tactics, but strictly off of just mindset. Like it's because it's the one thing that's missed. Like all the books teach the tactics, all the coaches teach the tactics, and yes, we do touch on mindset, but it's just a different playing field when you actually have to apply it, being uncomfortable and still just making that extra call. It's totally different, and I think people underestimate that, honestly.
Yeah, I definitely agree, man. Mindset is, oh man, it's a totally thing, you know, from breaking yourself down mentally, and especially in the military, they break you down mentally. Physically, you're going to get there, you know, no matter if you're in shape or you're not in shape. But if you train yourself and tell yourself, I can do this, you'll be surprised at what you can accomplish. So I agree 100%, man. You know, if you're there in that mental capacity and you have the desire to be successful, and no matter what it is, if it's real estate or if it's not real estate, you can do it. You know, it's all about what you tell yourself. Because if just like you said in that example, if it's so simple to make 10 calls, it's simple not to make 10 calls. So it's whatever you tell yourself.
Right.
You know, and just to touch a little bit more on that, what Austin was mentioning, I've read two amazing books by people like in that field, the 𝐒𝐿 and David Goggins. Those are two powerful. I'm talking about powerful mindset. It's all in the mind. What they go through, what they've been through, and they still keep pushing and nothing can stop them. Like it's all in the mind. If you can believe it, you can definitely achieve it. There's been a lot of stories from David Goggins, like his shoes were bleeding and he kept going and he did multiple tasks that people said he couldn't do it. And he didn't believe it in himself, and he still kept pushing and pushing. If anyone out there hasn't read those books, 100% read those books. They would change your train of thought. It's insane. David Goggins is one, and 𝐒𝐿 it's
man,
next level.
Yeah, it is, man. I seen his story too, man. Going from somebody that wanted to be in the Navy SEALs and above the weight class to train his mind to drop that weight, even in the training. And it was very difficult for him in the training because nobody expects that. Navy SEALs has the hardest training, just like the special forces. So it's you know, I agree with you. I read that book too. It's a very good book, and I follow him and I look up to him. You know, he's very inspiring. You know, the inspiration that he gives off to others is like no other, man. Is, you know, like Jonathan said, man, if you guys haven't read that book, I would definitely.
Yeah, it's like there's those certain books like, okay, some I read like, okay, I got some good stuff, some good things out of it, but there's certain books you read here and there that be like, whoa, hold on.
Yep.
It really get you and touch you and want to push you to the next level. Like that's a nugget right there. I need that, and I need to use that and implement that somehow within my business.
I actually just added it to the cart. Can't hurt me?
Yes. Oh man, that one is a phenomenon. 𝐒𝐿 too. The other one.
The cover looks official.
Yeah.
It looks like I can't hurt him based off of just the cover.
It's amazing.
Man. It's pretty cool, man. You know, the inspiration people give off these days is, and I think with the generation that we're in and what people see on social media, things don't happen like this. So people have to realize that when you put the work in, all of that affirmation and the manifestation, you can manifest all you want, but you got to put in the work behind it. And then that's when you start to see the universe align with your thoughts and your vision. So I'm a firm believer of manifestation as well, but I also put in the work to make that stuff happen. So
I agree. All right. So let's talk about your first wholesaling deal. How do you get into wholesaling? Let's talk about where do you wholesale?
Yeah.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah, it's so funny that you mentioned that, man. My first wholesale deal, I was still doing corrections. And this is why I said everything happened for a reason. I lost a lot of buyers and sellers because I couldn't have my phone. And then when somebody would call out of work, I had to stay there. I couldn't get in touch with the buyer, couldn't get in touch with the seller. So things happen for a reason. But my first deal, believe it or not, took a year and 1 month. I can never forget because it was a short sale. And everybody knows if you're in the real estate space, short sales take a long time. So I still wholesale. Right now. Yeah. I have 3 short sales, so I know. And yeah, man, my first one was in Newark, and then it's a different feeling for me, knowing it wasn't even a check amount. It was the fact that I did it. So it didn't go into the title company, picking it up. It was a different feeling, man. It was really different. And I was like, man, God put this knowledge in me. I know I could do it. And then I grasped the concept of real estate. I know the numbers. I understand it. So that's where I'm at. And then I'm in Jersey. I wholesale in Jersey. Anywhere in the country, honestly, that where the numbers make sense. I look at different variations of properties, mobile home parks, apartment buildings, warehouses, anything that a buyer can buy, you can wholesale it. Because as long as that property has the capacity to have a buyer for it, you can make it spread in between. And then, that's that. But I'm primarily in New Jersey, a wholesale there. I transformed my whole business model from mainly going from residential to commercial, which we have a deep dive on that. But that's where we're primarily at for the time being is New Jersey.
How did you find your first wholesale deal? How did that come about?
So my first wholesale deal, I actually hooked up with a good agent, good realtor that was bringing a lot of short sale volume, and I was always put in my mindset that if you want to wholesale, be a buy and hold investor or fix and flipper, it starts with finding a good deal off market. So I started training myself to find things off market. So I will always go around. I would go into pre-foreclosure lists, and then all that list and stuff was free. Because when you're working, you try to be frugal at first and not spend so much on data because you're just starting out, so you don't know how to use the data. So I would do the freeway. I would go to pre-foreclosures. I would knock on doors. I would send out letters, handwritten. I didn't even really know about skip tracing and cold calling just yet when I first started. And that's how I landed that first deal, man. It took a while. The seller said yes, off of a cold call. I mean, not a cold call. I'm sorry, off of a door knock. And then she said yes. We kept in touch about that time frame, and I closed the first one. And then it seems like the universe just aligned everything as I started doing more and more deals, and I was able to leave my job after that incident happened. And I just kept wholesaling. But the systems behind that is I would tell anybody right now that's trying to get into wholesale game, technology is really on your side. From just a few years ago, from when I first started, all of this technology did not occur. All of these skip tracing websites, all these pulling lists and all that stuff was not here. So you had to do the simple way of going to and I still recommend this honestly because your municipalities have the most data. They know what's going on, code enforcement, back taxes, sheriff sales, pre-foreclosures, all of this stuff is in your courthouse. Only thing you got to do is get friendly with people. But you got to go out there, talk and network. That's how you get deals. And then just going back off what you were saying, Jonathan, that's how I started getting after that first one. I started door knocking again. I was like, okay, how can I systematize this thing? So I started getting, I'm sorry about that. I started getting a CRM system, which now I still use to the date. Some people grow, but I still love it. I love Podio. I have Podio, and right now I have a lead manager and a cold caller. Because at first I thought, I try to revitalize my business model a few times, but now it really works for me. I thought I wanted to have a huge team and have an office and all that. Everything is virtual right now. If you can, like the pandemic really showed us, if you can have a business model to where you don't need an office, you will survive and thrive. So that's where I'm at with that. I have just one cold caller, one lead manager, and then on the dispo side, I had a dispo manager, and the dispo manager for the listeners are dispositions. meaning, getting that contract to the finish line, talking to a buyer, talking to a title company and or attorney, and things of that nature. So I mainly do the dispo because I like being in the field. I can hire someone else, but I don't know what it is. It's like every time I'm out there, I find more leads that's not on the data that you pull. That's another thing too about the municipalities, because sometimes the data cannot keep up with what just went abandoned yesterday, but I can because I'm already out in the field. So when you're taking that address down, then you know how to skip trace and find a number. You can make it work faster than somebody that's pulling data. So that is an advantage of being out in the street too. You can see real-time leads, real-time properties that have water damage from the water department, real-time properties that caught fire. So that's all little things that I like to tap into with the fire departments, making friends with them so they can give you that list of properties just caught fire Monday. They send you the list Tuesday, thing, because then it works for the community. You know what I mean? Property that just caught fire, most likely they're going to either waiting on an insurance company, the homeowners, or if they don't have insurance, they can't do anything. They stuck. So then you can come in as the investor and offer them that options, whatever the option may be. Wholesale it, fix and flip it, fix it up to buy and hold, whatever the option is. You can offer that to the homeowner. So that's where I'm at with my business now, man. Just systematizing it. And from somebody cold calling now, I do pull lists. I don't really drop for dollars like I used to. But what I usually like to do for that, which I'm kind of revamping the bird dog system. What people don't know what a bird dog is somebody that necessarily don't want to wholesale, but they can send you leads so you can do the work and then you just pay them a referral fee. So I started doing that. What I used to do was Uber. I was real big on Uber, but then everybody catch on. It's tough to make it work. And then Uber drivers now, it's a little bit different with the coronavirus. So I used to do Uber. I used to do the postal service. I used to work at the postal service. So I used to just have, people I know, like, listen, you find abandoned property, because the post office know the abandoned properties before anything else. So I used to have them say, listen, you find an abandoned property, I can give you a referral fee for $100 to $1,000 when it closed. And then for them, it's like it's nothing different, because they're already going on their regular routes delivering the mail. Only thing they doing this time is forwarding me the address. So that's just one step for them, and it works for everybody. And then what else I was doing? I was doing Comcast. I still do. I still have people. So it's door to door. You have people that sell sales agents like Comcast, Verizon, and all that do door to door. I contact them and say, listen, the abandoned properties, you walk in all the streets. If you can send the address and write it to me, send it to me, we could make it work. So and I got a couple people like that too. They send me addresses. They send me for sale by owner leads, and they send me abandoned properties. Because I can't be everywhere at once. I can't drop for dollars in every city, every corner. So I try to have as much eyes on the street as I can. And then that sends me more leads than I need. And I also, what I did too, my last step was to building a huge lead generation to where I'm barely even, mind you too, I barely even spend as much marketing dollars as I used to, because this one has catapulted me. I have to my knowledge, at least, I have the largest New Jersey wholesaling group. Right now I'm at 507 members for aspiring people that would love to wholesale or want to get into the game. And some people really find good deals, but they can't find a buyer. And they usually send me their leads if they can't close it, or they send it to me if it's locked in under contract, and I give them a buyer with JV. But if the listeners don't know what that is, a JV is a joint venture. It's usually when another, or they call it co-wholesaling. Somebody has a contract and they need a buyer. They come to you and you match the two, and you usually split the assignment fee. I don't like throwing the number up top because it makes it harder to move the property to a buyer. So we usually split the assignment fee and we go 50-50. And then I get leads like that, mainly 10 to 15 times a day. I get leads, 10 to 15 different people, 10 to 15 different leads. So 10 people times 10 leads, that's 100 leads just off of that. I got, like I said, the list. I still pull some lists here and there, but it's enough data to where the VA is constantly cold calling. And I don't like to go through one list. I like to go through it, not throw it away, but continuously go through it about 7 times. So about every month to month and a half, because you'll be surprised. People may work in the morning, but they get switched over to the night shift, or they may get switched over to 10 to 2. So you just probably calling them in the morning and it doesn't seem like they're interested, or you can't get through. So I refresh the whole list, a couple times. I usually do about 7 times before I throw the list away and put it away, but I don't throw it in the garbage. I just I reattack it about another 6 months and do the same thing. Then if I'm like really getting no hits, then it's just, you know, I just put the list away. But to tap into what Jonathan said, I started doing more commercial, and to be honest with you, as to why I started doing that, because of the numbers made sense. As far as now, I'm like, wow, if I can do, because what I used to do 2 to 3 deals a month. But I'm like, man, I had to spend almost half of that on marketing. Still got to pay a VA, still got to pay the lead manager. The profit was okay. Don't get me wrong, it was okay. But I was like, you know what? If I can do, let's just say on a modest 1 to 5 deals a year at 100,000 a piece, with less effort, you know, I find myself doing more work with the little deals than the big deals. So it's funny how that works, because the big deals, people know what they want. So I'm gonna give you an example. I have a hedge fund manager. He tells me, if you find a single tenant building, single tenant, meaning a Wendy's, a Popeyes, a Starbucks, if you find it vacant, you line up the tenant and bring me the whole package. I will close on it all cash, and I will give you a handsome referral fee. Right? So I'm like, okay, how much time can this take from me? The same amount of time to find a regular residential wholesale deal. So then I was like, okay, well, if I make that happen, usually my fee is around 50 to 100,000. So I'm like, okay, well, if I could keep doing just 2-3 deals a year off of that, I'm already doing a residential. It just makes sense. It didn't kind of streamline all the residential over to commercial. Then I could do 10 to 20 deals and trying to have a net profit. I mean, not net, but gross profit of 100,000 per deal. Then, you know, it's less work, it's less time consuming. And number one, too, is less competition. So nobody likes to talk to brokers. Everybody, I don't know why people are scared to talk to brokers. I love brokers because they are your biggest bird dogs. They already in the industry. They sending you pocket listings. They already out there. I don't really need to pull commercial data. The funny thing about commercial, you see if a sell by owner sign, nobody calls them. Why? Because they don't know how to talk to commercial owners. But if you understand the lingo and you just call them and how to do creative deal structure, it works for everybody. So that's why I started doing more commercial. I don't really hear anybody talk about commercial as much as I hired a mentor to kind of scale me up to where he's at. But yeah, man, commercial, you don't really hear about like a lot of commercial wholesaling. Even if you type it on YouTube, maybe see about 5 videos. Yep.
So much. First, a couple of things. One, I call it the 3 C's, right? And you literally 3 C's, right? Create, capture, contact, right? First things first, we create our list, which you've already shown how you've been able to do that. You talked about the technology where the list building is easier, but creating that list, right? I'm going down to the courthouse, I'm going down to the fire department, the mailers, the Uber drivers, everything, right? You're creating this list of leads, right? Creating the list. The second part is capture, right? Capturing their information, which you mentioned that, you know, only skip tracing became like relevant, like kind of recently, where we're able to get the information. And then 3 is contact, like however your contact method is, door knocking, cold calling, mailing, text blast, whatever. Text blast is my favorite. And it's just following the 3 C's consistently and just doing it on a bigger scale. The other thing that you pointed out, which is amazing, is that literally my most recent seller that just hit me up last week and was like, hey, I'm ready to sell my house now. Like, was like, what? Who's this? Like, I don't even remember. Like, who's this? Like, okay, we started talking about the property, sent over the listing signed. I just got the key. Like, she's out of state. She just mailed the keys. I just got the keys today. And mind you, I want to show like and it's on my system. She got hit maybe like 12 times without like I reached out to her once. Like the first time, the initial contact was just like, have you ever thought about selling? Yes, cool. Put that to the side. Followed up for maybe about 9 months, 10 months, 11 months. Nothing. Not a call back, not a text back, not a voice, nothing. But the issue is, or the fact remains, is the consistency of, like you said, with your CRM. Every time I wake up every single day, I go into my CRM. There's who I'm supposed to call for the day. Like that's it. It's right there. They don't have to be called every single day. Like I had that person on a monthly plan. Takes me 5 minutes, not even 5 minutes. It took me 90 seconds for them not to pick up. And then boom, like they go on, they'll get hit next month. Cause I just want to wake up and get like, so long story short, she hits me back last week talking about, hey, I'm ready to sell. And then now new seller, boom, like here we go. She's never responded to anything. She's never texted me back. She's never called me back, except like the first time that we spoke, that was it. I have countless other stories, but that was just the most recent one where like I just picked up the keys today. And it just hits home so hard because it's just like, yes, you just never know. And you could literally be contacting the individual like when they're at their worst. So long story short, she was sick. She was sick last year and she was taking care of family last year and But like, you would just never know. It is just the fact that like we take it so personal of like, oh, they're not responding or no, they're not that. And it's just like, have you ever once thought about like, because we in our minds, we see the seller in our heads looking at the phone, seeing that it's us, and it's like, no, I don't want to speak to Anthony. I don't want to speak to Jonathan. And we take it so personal where it's just like, what's in reality is happening is just like, I don't remember this number. They talked about selling, but like, I'm busy as hell right now, like whatever. And so that much hit much home. And then the third part that I wanted to point out was, which is amazing, was the progression from starting off, right? Because I remember when I was doing the handwritten letters, like handwriting them all out, doing whatever you could in the beginning to get started, get that traction. And then once that first deal hits, that second deal hits, maybe you're, time-wise, you can't do it and you're looking for other ways to leverage your time and leverage your resources, which is why you brought on the cold caller. I just brought on the cold caller myself. And it's literally you get into CEO mode where you're like, listen, I've done the reaching out to mad leads and then going through that. Now I want to mine that and I only want to talk to the people that have raised their hand. Because then, and you're just going up the CEO ladder. So those were the three things I wanted to point on because it's so spot on, it's so key, and it's so necessary for anybody that's looking to just build this business and take it to however wherever they want to.
I think it was a key point both of you mentioned. It's remove the emotion and build the system and stick to the systems. You did multiple follow-ups. No one said yes on the first time. Both of you said it was 7+ times. And that's what our listeners need to remember. You're not going to get a yes the first time. Keep hitting him. Different angles, email, text, phone call, different angles. You're going to get a yes eventually. It's a numbers game. Real estate is a numbers game.
Yep, I agree. I definitely agree.
And it's the mindset that taps into that where you're able to forcefully apply that. Because I think it's we all know the good stuff that we should do, right? Eat our vegetables, right? Like eat our vegetables, work out, do X, Y, and Z. But something mental wise has to shift where it now becomes law. This is just how you operate subconsciously. Because like I said, we give out all the tactics, but it's not until that mindset shift, which like Anthony, from your past and just like the manifestation and just having it click is so underrated. Because at that very point, it's easy not to do. And not feel the effects when when you don't do it.
And that's another reason why honestly because I really love what I do, and that's another reason why I didn't want to necessarily just start doing like any type of coaching or anything like that. I thought about it, but I see the potential in people, but when they don't see it in themselves, it's kind of hard for me to detach from it because I'm like, oh man, I know you could do this, but then sometimes I tell myself maybe it's not for them to do wholesaling. Maybe they great at fixing flipping. They could be good at that, or maybe they could buy house hacking with FHA and learn the systems, and then they buy and hold investors. So I had to realize that too, because sometimes I may see it, but then they may see another path for themselves. And then starting off from the wholesaling, I would tell anybody you need to learn the systems and do it first yourself. Because the problem when people start is they see all of these systems online and they say, okay, I want to get in wholesaling. Then they hire a cold caller but never call one call. So you got to do the business first in order to know how to train people. So it doesn't hurt to, even if you see these huge people on social media, you got to know what works for you. Because I realized that too, you start to compare yourself, which is not good. Oh man, this person did X, Y, and Z gross amount in 1 year. Oh man, why I'm not doing that? But you got to remember they're in a different market. Personally, me, I looked at a lot of different states. And to touch on what Jonathan said earlier about the virtual wholesaling, I'm mainly in New Jersey, but I did deals in Indiana too, living in New Jersey. I did deals in Cleveland, living in New Jersey. I did deals in, well, I'm closing on a property in 2 weeks from now in Detroit that I'm buying as a room house. And you start learning that stuff after a while. But we personally, me, New Jersey, New York, and California is the hardest parts of the country to wholesale. And it's because everybody wants to use an attorney, which is okay. I'm not saying not to. But if you're in the real estate space, you know attorney kill deals. Sometimes it is what it is. You know, it happens. So, you know, and then with that being said, New York is extremely pricey. So trying to find a cash buyer at a 3-family for 1.2 million may be a little bit tough. So it's the same thing with California. You know, it's extremely pricey. So personally, me, I think we're in the hardest parts in the country. Then even if you're a realtor in New Jersey, you getting that influx of buyers coming in from New York, and it's as short as a homes, it can be tough. You know, so we in that parts of the country where it's like, okay, we got to make it work. But people got to understand when you put in the work, your fee will come. You know, definitely will. But you got to learn the business first in order to make it work. So that's another thing I would definitely tell the listeners. You know, you got to do the business first before you can start trying to scale day one.
Anthony, you mentioned a very interesting topic that I want to dive deeper into. It looks like you took your strategy here and you took it to another state. How did you do that?
Yeah, so pretty much how I did virtual wholesaling, I sent out some mailers. I seen the different markets that I would like to kind of dive into. So I was like, okay, I already knew data because it was the same way from New Jersey. So I was like, okay, let me learn a area and find similar to people that are doing the same thing I'm doing in New Jersey in that market. And they will be either a team member, boots on the ground, somebody take pictures, you know, whatever the case may be. So essentially, I'm duplicating myself what I'm doing in New Jersey and I'm doing it in another state, right? So that's number one. Same thing. Number two is when you pull a list and you cold call, you getting some traction over there. Then that's when somebody said they're interested. Are you local? Yes, you are, because you got your boots on the ground. So then that's when you send that lead over to your boots on the ground. They go over there, take pictures, and then say videos, whatever the case may be. And then they send you those back. Then that's when, if the agreement matches up, you start looking for a buyer. Usually I like to have that person that has boots on the ground, like to have some sort of experience. If it's okay if they don't, I only say that because then they can bring the buyer. I don't have to do everything or generate a whole list. If they already have a buyer, we just do 50-50. And that's how I do it, because it's, to me, I'm not trying to do 100% of everything to have nothing. You know, I'd rather have a little piece of the pie and do more deals than trying to have everything and do everything 100%, instead of hiring a company to take pictures and stuff like that and then trying to look for a buyer. So they can bring the buyer, and then I pretty much just keep it up, just keep doing it. And that's how I do my virtual wholesale. As far as choosing markets, it's up to the person what market they want to choose. Some people have, live in another state and have family in another state, so they find it easier. But, I would say look into a market to where, you can see yourself in it long term, you and that JV partner.
I like that because you mentioned Cleveland, and my wife and I got a chance to visit Cleveland really quickly, and I definitely have some high regards in regards to Cleveland. Just especially on the cash flow end, I don't know too much about the appreciation per se, or at least like appreciation where you're seeing it like engulfed in flames like in New Jersey, but right. I mean, yeah, they're it looks like they're the last major city that like hasn't gotten back to where they were pre-recession. In fact, that's where all the predatory lending did start, was like in Cleveland, and people just don't want to own homes, they want to rent. So I found that like tenants were staying there, not even like in the greatest of areas, but tenants were staying there for 8, 9, 10 years. And that was one thing that I noticed. So it seems like a very easy market to tap into, where one, if you don't have to worry about tenants, because tenants they've been there for 8 years, they're probably going to be there for another 2. And at least it's just easier for you to run your numbers, where you're like, okay, I got this coming in, here's my down payment, what am I looking at? So yeah, I'm glad that you mentioned Cleveland. So I might have to jump on that list as well for Cleveland. As far as deals and things like that. So yeah, love it. Love it.
Absolutely.
Okay, awesome. What about the rooming boards and VA housing before we go start our descent here? But what made you try to go into rooming houses? Like, was that you were wholesaling one deal and then you just happened to see it and you were like, hold up, this might be another opportunity here. Like, how did you get into that and like the VA portion of it? Or is that for you to now start holding some of your deals, or take us through your thought process with that?
Yeah, so I started off doing some room and stuff. Like, first one got that, kind of took the basement, started sharing out the room, doing shared living accommodations. And I was like, man, this is good. So the cash flow was so good. I started saving. I saved all my money. I literally only allocated the money for repairs for tenant turnover. I started doing that. I was like, okay. Then I did another JV deal here in Northern New Jersey. And I was like, okay, it's so good. And I bought another one in Patterson with a landlord. He liked my model, gave him some money, boom, kind of hopped on the deed, some creative structuring. And then I was like, man, I could keep doing this. So it's for me, it's a way of I really love doing rooms because I'm helping the community. That's the first thing. It's a shortage of housing crisis, especially, well, that's all throughout the country, but in New Jersey, it's so expensive that people living in their car. I mean, give example, I still own this one on South 11th Street, and it's crazy because the lady was living in her car in the city. It's called East Orange for your listeners, back of McDonald's. But she was always told me, she can't live in Newark because she's scared. I said, dang, that's crazy. The lady is 65, and she's on SSI. The most she get is $800 a month. So I put her in a room for $600. She was so grateful. She started crying because now she got $200 left over. I take care of the lights, gas, water, and all of that good stuff. They just take care of usually the toiletries and food. So then she was just so happy. She saved up and she moved in with a family member out of state. She was able to save, so and had housing in the time being. And this was about a year and a half ago. And so when I started doing that and started seeing that in the community, I was like, man, I can really do this. Like, I really love rooms. I really do love rooming houses. Now, in the term rooming houses and shared living, it's spread across the board. Different states have different laws. So check in, with your state if you want to do something like that. I know Cleveland and Detroit is very flexible with that type of stuff. And then that's why I started getting into group homes too. So I'm actually, and Jonathan touched on it a little bit. I should be wrapping up one in Cleveland, and I'm turning it into a group home. It's going to be 15 bedrooms, 5 baths. It's huge. It has a basketball court in the facility. So it's a huge property, and I'm doing 2 to a room. So, and not only that, I'm not a nonprofit. Of course, I have to make some type of profit in order to keep helping people. That's how I look at it. Because the more people I help, the more people that houses I could buy to house more people. So, with that type of thing, that type of model, you got to make sure the numbers work for you. And then when you start reaching out to these clinics or hospitals, whoever you get your clientele from, they are truly happy, because if you reach out to them, no one is doing this. I can tell you that now. As far as shared living accommodations, group home accommodations, you hear people talking about it, but it's not as big as like 2 to 4 unit apartment buildings, which is okay too. But that's my niche, to where I look at it. I had a mentor tell me, he's still my mentor to this day for rooms. He said, the way I look at a property is you want to take one to its highest and best use, that you can buy it extremely not cheap. Every property ain't gonna be cheap, but you can buy it at relatively a good price, but you can optimize it to its highest value. So he was like, for him, he was buying properties 10, 12, 15 rooms, and either one person in there or 2 people in there. So you do the math on that. If you got a 15 bedroom and you charging somebody $600 per bed, that's $1,200 a room times 15. How many properties do you need to really retire? That's what he was telling me, because he said ultimate goal, some people say, 1,000 units, this and that, which is okay if that's what you want to do. But he said for him, I can say his numbers because he was open enough to tell me his numbers. He had so many properties in Canada. He was collecting $40,000 a week off of his rooming spots, and he's been doing it for 40 years. So it's, the numbers there. You don't need that many. Think about it. 15 beds, you get 1,200 a room, 600 a bed, times 15. How many properties do you really need to retire? What's your freedom number? That's how I look at stuff. Do I really need 300 units? If I got 300 tenants paying me, I probably need about 10 properties, something like that. So You know, that's how I kind of look at it. And as far as touching that VA space, I always wanted to do that because when I was in Jersey, I got off at NJIT exit. Something told me to just talk to this guy at the light. He was asking me for money. I gave him money. He was a veteran. You know, he served. He did a couple tours. I got to know him, gave him some money. And I said, you know what? The veteran community, if anybody didn't notice, they have the most homeless people out the whole country, veterans. So, and it's crazy because they serve the community. So they serve our country. So I figure, why can't I serve them? Why can't I serve them? So that's how I look at it. So that play in Cleveland, I'm gonna start doing that all over. I actually built some connections in Cleveland and Akron, Ohio, to where they have a huge demand for veterans that's looking for housing, especially in Akron. Akron is ridiculous. Like but there's no housing for them, you know, and they have money to pay a landlord or group home owner or something like that, but they just can't find housing. Wow. Yep. So that's pretty much how I got into it, man. Anything I pretty much do right now is buying whole wise is a rooming spot. In some smaller apartment buildings too, and I do some joint ventures with 2 to 4 units, but mainly my niche is rooms.
Say you bought a community center with a full court basketball?
Yeah.
Like, I was still stuck on that. Like I had tuned out for maybe like 30, 45 seconds after that. Like, hold on, he just said
basketball court. Yeah.
What is that outside? Wait, that's outside?
No, it's an inside. It's an inside.
So wait.
Yep.
Is this a simple? What is this? Are you buying this commercially, or is this like, what the hell is this?
That's the crazy thing. It is zoned for see, like their laws over there is different. So like it's very lenient with rooms and all that stuff. So it's actually zoned commercial and residential. So you can do either one, how you want to do it. It has a huge spots in the back. We're probably gonna pave the back. Everything goes right, and it's over 7,000 square feet. It has a whole basement big enough to fit 10 people. So we're looking at probably housing alone in that property, probably 40 people, maybe 40 to 50. And if we do just that one property alone, if we do on the modest side, I put my numbers at around 400 to 500 to be on the modest side. But I want all of the people, they could do that math. 400 times 40 people, you can retire off of one property. So you don't really need to do nothing else if you don't want to. Yeah.
Are you not concerned with like turnover or like?
Oh, I have systems for that.
Okay.
Yep. And if you want to talk about that real quick, because that's the easy one. I pretty much got cameras. I don't even need property.
Yeah, let's tap into that really quickly, and then we'll jump into the core 4. But I want that and like, are you not concerned with like the stress on the utilities and like maintenance and stuff like that? Like, talk about that.
Now, the interesting thing, like, it's so funny because I laugh with my friends that especially my friend, he owned a lot of 4 families in northern New Jersey, and he called me the other day. I was like, I'm buying a room house, man. You convinced me. So, and the reason why that happened was he was like, man, if I lose one tenant, I'm kind of almost paying the bills, but it's kind of tough. I'm cash flowing a little bit, but he was like, for me and him had a heart to heart. He's a good friend of mine. He said, why would I start screening all these tenants to make sure they credit right? They got the job. I don't do none of that, by the way. I don't check credit. I don't check background. I don't do none of that. People are gracious enough to have a home. So when you put them in a room, they grateful.
And they're not
because
tenants.
majority of the time they coming from a shelter or they refer from a clinic or something like that. And they pay on time too, 1st through the 5th. And they usually on some government subsidy, SSI, SSDI, veteran disability or something like that. And you really don't hear it. Yeah, you get a little bad seeds every once in a while, but that's, with a regular 2 to 4 unit too. But I don't do credit checks and none of that stuff. I don't do that. And then the way I do my systems is even for Detroit, give you an example, because I'm closing on that one soon. I'm going to do cameras on the inside, the hallways, kitchen area, and the outside exterior, driveways, front porch, and everything to delegate people who's trying to bring another party in there that's not supposed to be in there, pretty much. So and then I got that stuff on my phone. I could pull up the camera and say, this is the property doing. Okay, cool. So and then I have an in-house manager, I call it in-house manager. They don't collect the rent, but they report to me back to what's going on inside the property. So if Joe Smith is arguing with Lisa, I know what's going on. So I know who is not happy with who. So if I got another property in the area, I can move them to that property. And then as far as rent collection, I have a third-party management service that I'm hooking up with that a friend of mine told me about to collect the rent, because even the room spots that I have in Jersey, I barely go to. I usually check on them like once a month, and yeah, they put their card information, their NetSpend card or whatever the case may be, take out their processing fee, I get the rent, and I'm good. So I'm really hands off. I don't really need a property management manager or management company if I don't really need to. It's just it's like an added protection just to do a walkthrough, so somebody's saying that somebody's face is shown to the property. So that's all it's about. But other than that, yeah, that's my system. I'm a systems guy, just like wholesaling. Same thing with rooms. You gotta have a system.
Military in general, like that. It's
Yeah, you
just
gotta have a system.
checklists. Like it's just like
Yep.
every mission has a briefing. There's during, and then even more importantly, there's a debriefing, which is like it's the tracking, it's the feedback, it's the film for sports. Like, okay, what did we do right? What did we do wrong? Like, and then you know, next time you're going out there, like you're that much sharper. But it systems just plays into everything that you've done just on the service and like law enforcement, U.S. service, like just all of it. Like that's just, yeah, it just makes so much sense. Just that is systems, like checklists, like that's so interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, just being indifferent. You know, sometimes I had to have a talk with myself, because you see people like this one, that thing, not necessarily compare myself, but I was like, man, this guy got 500 units, man. You know, how can I get to something like that? But then I had to remember, if you do rooms, it's really like a unit, because you're getting paid either per bed or per room. You know, so it's like a unit. You know, if you got 3 properties, you know, five beds, 2 baths, and it's, you know, five times 3 properties, that's 15 units per se. Every unit, every room is paying you. So it's similar the same way. That's why I love single family space. I kind of laugh when people say don't invest in it, because it's more for me. But you know, and I can make just as much cash money as multifamily, just as much cash flow. So, you know,
that's good.
Yep.
You said something very, very interesting. It sounds like you have a lot of systems in place. You use systems throughout your whole business, and it sounds like you think outside the box.
Yeah.
You go to, like you mentioned, Comcast, using a Comcast person to give you details, using bird dogs in different countries. You're building connections. You don't want 100% of a grape. You want 10% or 20% of a watermelon. That's what I'm hearing. You rather have a bigger percentage, and at the end of the day, it's bigger. So what got you to start thinking outside the box? Because a lot of your strategies are definitely outside the box.
Yeah, I mean, 'cause I seen what other people that like the wholesale is doing, and I was like, well, if you want to succeed, you got to put a little spin on it and make it work for everybody. And even sellers, you know, necessarily, I don't even think about my fee when I'm doing a deal. I think about that seller. I'm like, okay, if the lowest cash offer didn't work, because that's what honestly needs to be if you own a single family rental for a fix and flip for an investor. I'm like, if that doesn't work, maybe I can do a spin on it, offer them this, but on the back end, they're okay with me making X amount, you know, and then usually they say, you know what, I never thought of that. Let's do that. And I still turn a deal that could have possibly been dead into a good deal. Same thing I do with wholesalers. They dead deals that they just, because people trained to do this whole 70% of the ARV doesn't exist right now. I usually just go off of what buyers are buying at. So if you give a deal to a buyer, single family, and then they sell you, I could pay 200 for it, and then you got the seller at 180, you don't even have to do that simple math. You can just go back to the seller 190, you know, 195, you know, something like that. Lock it up and then flip it to them. So I'm all about thinking outside the box, because the more you get creative, the longer you will last in this game. Somebody, my first mentor always told me, if you're a one-trick pony, you won't last. You know, so
thinking outside the box, you know, number one, but please don't, I don't want to lose it, but you said it and it was amazing. Providing the seller with options. And I think that we go which is why I love being an agent doing this, because I'm literally full service. Like it is a la carte, like whatever you want. You want to go on the market, we can go on the market. If you want to sell quickly, you ain't got to worry about people coming in, like we can wholesale, we can be done with this quickly. So straight a la carte, full service. But the one thing that I wanted to say was, you mentioning that we get so static as wholesalers, like, all right, I'm going to talk to the seller, and then it's going to be 70% rule, and then da 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 da, and X, Y, and Z. That like you're so static that you don't adjust. You don't know how to adjust. So then like deals that normally wouldn't look like deals because they didn't look like deals on your stage, you have no idea what your end buyer is doing, which is why, and I just said it on the last podcast episode, the offer in a deal is composed of price and terms. So you already writing off, this investor because you're like, oh damn, like, they're gonna have a $100,000 rehab, like $100,000 rehab budget. Like these numbers are not gonna work. Have you ever thought about if the flipper owned their contractor company? Or maybe if they just had their whole family working on that, like construction costs are cut in half because everybody's working together? Like, have you ever thought about like price and terms? Like it's not just like so staticky. But that was the one thing I wanted to say, because I think that's so key that like we get into, which is why I saw something that was just like, wholesalers shouldn't be talking about rehab. Like, and it made so much sense because like the wholesaler is supposed to like they'll have to know like if it's a good deal or not, don't get me wrong. But at the same time, like the wholesaler should not be talking about like rehab numbers. They like, it should not matter. Why? Because that's the end investor's job, like to calculate that. Like I'm coming to you with a price. Here's what it is. However you handle whatever case is up totally on you. But
I agree.
I just not to mention, will a great wholesaler know their numbers? 110%. I'm just saying that like mind you, half the numbers already wrong. So it's just like I'd rather the wholesalers like actually not throw out any rehab numbers and instead like throw out like, oh, it's gonna be 60 and it winds up like being like 90. But to your point, like it just completely negates what's going on with the end buyer. Like buyer can't pay for this at all. Like what if the buyer's using private money and they're not doing anything for the deal, right? So like their ROI is going through the roof simply because them personally don't have skin in the game. Like have you ever thought about that? Like there's so many factors that go into that end buyer that we get or wholesalers get so static on, okay, does this meet the 70% rule? Same thing with rental properties in it. Does it hit the 2% rule? 2%? What? Like, what? Are you serious?
1%.
Like no money into the deal. What if Anthony came through on his VA loan and has no money into the deal and put 0% down? Like, do we need to hit a 2% rule for that? Like, it's so price and terms, listeners, is so key. So that and I love how you just provide, you focused on the seller and like what's the seller looking to accomplish. So yeah, man. All right, we're going on time. We're gonna go through the core 4 here. Bring us through, bring us home.
Sounds good.
All yours, John.
Before we get to that, I definitely want to touch on some more stuff. I'm sorry, guys.
I do your thing. I know we was looking out for time for you, but outside of that,
no. Yeah. You mentioned a lot of things. Again, Austin, you touched on it. Remove emotion. It's not one size fits all. If it works for this deal, it's not gonna work for that deal. Get out your mind. Get it. Just get rid of it. Get rid of it. Start being creative. Okay, that's not gonna work. Okay, let me try this one. That's not gonna work. Okay, let me try this one. Again, numbers game. Keep hitting on it. It's not gonna be the first attempt, the first price and terms, the first anything. Keep adjusting and grow with it, because the first option is not gonna work. If it did work, everyone will be rich, right?
Oh yeah. That's what
I don't want to be cliche or anything like that. It's the truth.
It's real though.
That's that. Yeah, that's it. And then too, when you spending money on data, man, you got to make use of your data. And
the data is not gonna work the first time around. Again, with the number, the data and what you select, the criteria you select, is not gonna work the first time around. You're gonna try and error. Everything is try and error. Keep that in mind. Everything is try and error. Your first cold caller will not work. Your first dispo manager will not work. Try and error. Your first bird dog, you mentioned you had a bird dog in different countries. That's not gonna work. Your first partner out of state, that may not work. Just keep trying, switching it, learn from it, see what went wrong, adjust, and move forward.
That's it. And take the emotions out the way. Sometimes
emotions out the way.
For that to happen, so you like, you know what? If if I do this instead of that, like you said, then I'm like, okay, then that should definitely work, you know. But if you keep doing the same thing, yeah, you know, that might frustrate you, you know, if you didn't learn from it the first, second, third, fourth time, yeah, that might, you know, you might want to hire a coach just to kind of guide you through that, you know,
Yeah.
if you're not good at hiring the team. Because some people too, you gotta be real with yourself. Some people just, you may not be good with hiring a team, and that's okay. You might need a business partner to hire the team, and you do the business. So it's, you know, you just got to see what ultimately works at the end of the day.
All right. All right. Now let's get on to the core four. We asked these four questions to all of our guests.
Okay.
Very first question is, what is your favorite aspect about real estate?
Oh man, favorite aspect. I would say I got two. Can I say two favorites?
Go for it. All
right, two favorites. I would say I get to help people. That's number one, especially what I do with the rooms. And then the second thing is freedom. You know, I was able to walk away from you know, my job because of real estate. You know, if it wasn't for that, I'd probably still been working. Yeah, that's my two.
Awesome. Freedom. That's awesome. All right. The very next question is, what's your favorite business or personal development book?
Ooh, that's a good one. Oh man. Everybody.
I know we got one. It's in the cart already. Can't hurt me. Let me get one more.
That is a good one. Let me see. It's either out of I'm not gonna say Rich Dad Poor Dad because that was very
don't do it. Don't do it. That's banned from the show.
But I would say the Go-Giver. Go-Giver.
Bob Burke.
Yeah. And
never heard that one.
Yeah, the Go-Giver is good because it teaches you, like, you kind of relying on people to be full circle. Like when you in it to help people, you're gonna get that back in return from the universe. That's what the book is ultimately is about. And it's a very good book from somebody that's stubborn to him opening up his mind to him meeting somebody and legitimately just started helping people, just started helping them. And then everything he wanted was coming back to him. So it's a good book.
Got it.
I think that kind of touches on your strategy. I feel like that touches on your strategy.
Yeah. I'm always in it to help people, man. People contact me about contracts and all of that. I send it to them. You know, it is what it is. You know, maybe if I could do something in the future with them, if I can't, it's okay. You know, at least I did my good deed.
Okay. All right. The next question is, if you're not wholesaling, you're not helping others, what do you do for fun on your spare time?
Oh man, me and my fiance love food, man.
Same here.
Yeah. Oh man, we always try new food places and traveling. Those are my two favorite. Traveling and food places. Yeah.
Awesome. I love it, man. I'm a foodie too, man. I travel just for food to a lot of places.
Oh yeah, me too. An hour, 30 minutes, I'm there.
Yeah. The last question is, where can people find you?
Oh, cool, man. Yeah, so you could find me on Instagram at Anthony_the investor, and you can find me on Facebook at Anthony Lawson, and then that's all my social media platforms for that. You know, I'm very active on those, so you can definitely contact me.
Perfect. That's good. Thank you, Anthony. I want to say thank you for hopping on the show, giving all those gems, thinking it out the box. First with his mindset. Everyone out there, mindset first, then systems. Use different parts from your different jobs to go on to the next level. That's what I got. Hopefully you guys got more information on that. Austin, you have any final words?
No, I think those are all just actionable. You know what I mean? Like, literally broke down the strategy. I mean, you know, and I'm pretty sure Anthony will tell you, like, there's nothing special about it. There's, and I don't want to say special. I, like he said, with his spin on it, like, that's it. Outside of that, everything that he's doing, it's really contact sport. And all he's doing is just doing that more than the next person, like making that extra phone call, doing that extra mail, you know, growing that, whatever the case, so that more people can just continue to be touched. And it's working pretty awesome, obviously, as we can see.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I just want to say, man, I appreciate y'all for inviting me on the podcast, man. So gracious enough to, you know, spread what I know, you know, with your listeners. Then hopefully, you know, they can learn something from it and then incorporate it in whatever they're doing.
It's all love. I'm good on
Yeah.
my end.
I'm good, man. Thank you so much, Anthony. Appreciate it, man.
All love,
No
man. Thank you,
problem. No
man.
problem. And thank y'all, fellas.
Absolutely, man. Be safe.
Absolutely.
All right.